Yes, ACC champions. Can you believe it? Duke finishes 19-1 in conference play, the best record ever, and it came by defeating the North Carolina Tar Heels in Chapel Hill. What a weekend.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. So excited to have you here with us today on Monday, March 10th, 2025. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on inside the life of Duke athletics. And today, we're going to focus a whole lot on the Duke men's basketball team, who finishes the season with a 19-1 record in ACC play, the best run through conference play that the league has ever seen. Duke, the outright ACC champions, by knocking off the North Carolina Tar Heels 82-69. We'll break down that entire game with our good pal Kevin Connelly from Ball Durham. Do want to also give a shout out to Carol Lawson and Duke women's basketball for winning the ACC tournament. First time in 12 years that Duke women's basketball has been atop the league. So really exciting stuff that we saw yesterday there in Greensboro. All right, if you haven't done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Do us a favor, leave us a 5-star rating and written review. You can also watch our show each and every day on YouTube. Simply like this video, share it with your friends, spread the word about what we got going on here with Locked On Blue Devils, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So without further ado, Kevin Connelly is here. We're going to dive into this game against North Carolina. We'll talk about the ACC tournament coming up this week for Jon Scheyer and Duke men's basketball. But first things first, Kevin, let's just celebrate the moment. 19-1 run through league play. And for the first time under head coach Jon Scheyer, the Duke Blue Devils are ACC regular season champions.
Yeah, JJ, it's a great accomplishment for this team. It's kind of unbelievable and I've said this a couple times now on your show the last few times I've been on, for how down the ACC has been this year, and for kind of everyone piling on and saying how poorly teams have performed in the conference. It took a second half comeback in the final game of the regular season for Duke to clinch the outright ACC championship and the number one seed in the ACC tournament. Just kind of tough to believe, to wrap your head around. Like, if this team doesn't go 19-1 in the conference, they are not the outright ACC champion. So just the fact that the narrative around the league this year has been how down it has been, but yet it still took a 19-1 record to win it.
Yeah, we were scoreboard watching on Saturday, of course, waiting for the 6:30 p.m. Eastern tip-off for Duke and North Carolina to figure out, okay, if we lose, are we still outright champions? Possibly. If Clemson and Louisville would have picked up their third loss within the league. Of course they didn't. Of course, the league's down to the top three teams were able to win. So they both won, and that makes it so much better that Duke was able to pick up that victory to be outright titles. Because to your point, I don't want to get into tiebreaker scenarios with all of this and try and figure out, is there a world where Duke wouldn't have been ACC champions and the number one seed? Everybody would have been able to recognize the league title. That doesn't matter. We're just the outright champions. They aren't. We've got the best record ever in league play, going 19-1, and it's just an unbelievable job that Jon Scheyer and this entire coaching staff did, and fitting, to your point, that it did take a little bit of a second half comeback to make things happen and to make it work.
Yeah, and we've seen that now throughout the course of a couple of games here in ACC play for this Duke team. You look at, obviously, a game they lost against Clemson. I think they're down 7 with about 9 minutes to go, and they rally and end up taking a lead inside the final minute before giving that game away. You look at the game against Louisville, where they're down as well at halftime and in the second half, and with Cooper Flagg battling foul trouble, very similar to what he did against North Carolina on Saturday, and they're able to win that game. And then, obviously, you go to that Wake Forest game, too, where it looks like Wake Forest in their home building, they're going to get this big win to try to push them to the NCAA tournament. And then obviously Duke goes zone, able to stem the tide in the game. They rally, they win. And then Wake Forest season kind of torpedoes from there. So this team has been battle tested, and not even to mention what they did on Saturday against North Carolina. 15-point lead evaporates. North Carolina has its largest lead of the game in the second half with about 12 minutes to go. And Duke just hit a gear that, I'll say that we've seen it this year before, but given the stakes and given the opponent and given the venue, I think maybe that is one of their most impressive performances of the season, holding North Carolina to what I think it was 10 points in the final 12 and a half minutes of the game.
RJ Davis for the Tar Heels played his 170th career game. He surpassed his teammate Armando Bacot, for that record. Baycott set it a year ago for most games played there in a North Carolina uniform, and R.J. Davis was doing every single thing to keep North Carolina afloat there in the first half, making tough shot after tough shot. Some of that shot making carried over into the first part of the half, but then Duke was able to really lock it down defensively. First time all season, we saw Duke get into a little bit of foul trouble for Cooper Flagg specifically, picking up those 3 first half fouls. Remember, he did foul out in that Louisville game earlier in the season, but Flagg only had 1 foul in the first half. The 4 came in the second half, and Duke was able to still win that game after his disqualification. So good to see when they had to go with extended minutes for other players stepping up there, getting the return of Maliq Brown, which, back on Friday's show, we're still trying to speculate whether or not he would be fully available. All of those things added up and really helped Duke be able to overcome some of those foul trouble issues.
Yeah, and I think you also look at North Carolina and the defense that they played, which obviously wasn't the best when you look at some of the shooting numbers, specifically for players on this Duke team, like a Sion James going 6 for 8. You mentioned Maliq Brown. He was 3 of 4. I think we have to highlight the play of the backcourt of Knueppel and Tyrese Proctor. Knueppel led the way with 17. He was 7 of 10. Tyrese Proctor was 6 of 10. This is it's a Duke team that almost shot 60% from the field. So they were really able to get just about any type of shot they wanted against this North Carolina defense.
And then I want to give some love to Caleb Foster for what he was able to do there in the second half. John Shire pointed it out as well. I mean, coming in the second half at about the under 12 mark, Caleb Foster did not play at all in the entire first half. Immediately makes a tough transition layup, picks up a pass from Sion James, goes into the chest of Allen Lubin and is able to lay it up off the glass. A little bit later in Sion James' run out, though, Caleb Foster putting his body on the line to kind of tip the ball out in front ahead. Like, that was amazing to see. This game means so much to everybody. And despite not even playing earlier in the week against Wake Forest, what a job Caleb Foster did to still emotionally be in it and wanting to put his body on the line and pick up a win for his team.
Yeah, I don't think it was inconceivable to believe that after Duke beats Wake Forest by 30 on Monday and Caleb Foster is the only player that doesn't get on the floor, you're not going to see him again in a Duke uniform on a basketball court. I don't think that was far-fetched for anyone to say or believe. And then just 5 days later, he comes in with Duke trailing with, as you said, under 12 minutes to go, and he comes in and he kind of gives the spark that the team needs to create that big run and go in front and create separation. It was 2 players that, like I said, 5 days ago, you didn't think were going to be on the court, and Caleb Foster, and I also think Maliq Brown as well in that second half. Because if you look at the splits between Maliq Brown and Kaman Malawach in this game, Maliq Brown might have been Duke's one of their most valuable players in this victory. So those 2 players certainly helped stem the tide when Duke got down in that second half and eventually able to rally and win.
ACC champions outright, Duke Blue Devils, now the number 1 seed going into this week's ACC tournament. Let's talk a little bit more about Cooper Flagg, who wrapped up an all-ACC Player of the Year caliber season with a big-time performance against the North Carolina Tar Heels. We'll continue that conversation with Kevin Connelly after we take our first break here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources with the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every single order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Please use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Supply House is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Our show today also brought to you by our good friends over at Wayfair. Your home should reflect your style, and with Wayfair, it's easier than ever to make that happen. Whether you're looking for a simple refresh or tackling a big home project, Wayfair has everything that you need all in one place. Their huge selection makes it easy to find the perfect piece, no matter your space or budget. From cozy furniture, stylish decor, to kitchen essentials and outdoor must-haves, Wayfair has it all, and at the prices that fit your budget. Finding the perfect piece, it's just so amazing, the examples that you've got when you're able to look through things with Wayfair's massive, massive selection. It's more than just furniture, and again, so easy with the shopping and delivery. The site made it simple to compare styles, and the order arrives fast. Head over to wayfair.com and find something that fits just your style today. That's wayfair.com, Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Okay, let's keep rolling. We've got Kevin Connelly here from Ball Durham talking about the play of Duke basketball this season, in particular, Cooper Flagg in foul trouble in the first half. Second half comes back in and immediately gets to work on the offensive end, picking up some buckets, and then really ramped it up on the defensive end. You could tell the animosity he was feeling inside the building from UNC fans. His family's getting a little bit of hate as well from their reactions to some of the plays Cooper Flagg was making there in the second half. But man, what a world and what a job defensively Cooper Flagg was able to do. And a big storyline everyone was talking about is, would we get to the end of the year, at the end of the regular season, and see Cooper Flagg truly leading his basketball team in all 5 major statistical categories? That answer, yes, it happened. What a year for the freshman Cooper Flagg.
Yeah, I think the one player you definitely don't have to worry about for this Duke basketball team going into the ACC and NCAA tournaments is Cooper Flagg, right? Even if he doesn't have it on a given shooting night or he gets into foul trouble like he did against North Carolina, he is going to be there when it matters most, and he is going to find a way to leave his impact on a game positively. Like you said, he leads the team in all 5 major statistical categories. He is going to be the ACC Player of the Year. I can't imagine someone votes for anybody else. I would imagine it's going to be unanimous. He's going to be the unanimous ACC Rookie of the Year. The big question is, does he get the Defensive Player of the Year too? When you look at all the analytics and the higher level statistics, it certainly shows that he is the best defender in the ACC. But we'll see if the voters also agree if he sweeps those 3 major individual awards.
Yeah, no, the fact that that's even plausible, that could happen, and possible because of what he was able to do on the defensive end of the floor. We loved the year that Tre Jones had a couple of seasons ago, being the ACC Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. And there is a true world in which Cooper Flagg's going to be able to walk away with both of those honors. But Tre Jones did that as a sophomore, and now you've got Cooper Flagg able to step up and do it as a freshman. That's just insane, man.
Yeah, I don't have the stats in front of me, and maybe there's a glaring player out there that I'm not thinking of, but I mean, he would have to be one of the first to do that, right? To win the Player of the Year, the Freshman of the Year, and the Defensive Player of the Year. I can't imagine anybody or a lot of people doing that before him. And then also, we haven't talked about the fact that he's in a neck and neck race right now to be the National Player of the Year with Janai Broom. And obviously that's not going to be announced, I think, till the Final Four. But these ACC awards will be announced here, I think today, actually.
Shortly, yeah.
Yeah, so there's still a lot to be determined for him individually. But as the team goes, he goes as the team goes. If he's not shooting well, you don't worry about him because he can still get to the free throw line. I think you look at that Clemson game as a perfect example. Might have been battling an illness, wasn't feeling great, did not look good over the first 30 minutes of that game. And then the final 10 minutes, he found his second wind and tried to carry Duke over the finish line before just coming up short. And kind of the same thing here against North Carolina. Starts out the game really strong, gets into foul trouble, 2 quick fouls. John Shire, which I commend him for putting him back out there on the floor in the first half with those 2 fouls. Unfortunately, picked up his third, but in the second half, you wouldn't even know. And to have those 3 fouls in the first half and still finish with 15, 9, and 6 and a double-digit win for your team, it says a lot about the player Cooper Flagg is. That not that we already knew that.
Yeah, I'm doing a little bit of research here and looking back at it, back to that year that Tre Jones was able to win both awards. that season, Vernon Carey Jr. was named Freshman of the Year, and that was the first time ever that a school had the Defensive Player of the Year, the Player of the Year, and the Freshman of the Year. So now we're going to be in a world where it's the same player that's able to do all of those things. Just unbelievable stuff. And what Cooper is able to do, making an impact on the offensive end of the floor, was tremendous as well, because he did have those 6 assists in this game, was really finding a way to impact things. And a lot of people now talking about his fellow freshman, Knueppel, and whether or not he could walk away. He's already receiving some first-team All-ACC recognition. There's a world in which Duke's going to have 2 freshmen that make that All-ACC squad because, man, Knueppel was really, really dialed in to Saturday's game, Kevin.
It's crazy because if you look at Knueppel in any other year, have to imagine he's the ACC Freshman of the Year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but like he's not even going to get a single first place vote because of Cooper Flagg. It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Right.
But yeah, I think, I mean, and Duke has kind of gone on this campaigning spree on its social media since the Wake Forest game on Monday about how it should just about sweep every single All-ACC or individual award the conference has. And you kind of can't debate them that much because they have numbers to back it up. They have the league record to back it up. They have the national ranking to back it up. But yeah, I think you can make a valid case that Knueppel should be a first-team All-ACC, or if not, at worst, second-team All-ACC. I think Sion James should be an all-defensive team player. You can make the case that Kamen Malawach should be an all-defensive team player. You should make the case that Tyrese Proctor is a first-team All-ACCer. Maliq Brown could be in the discussion for Defensive Player of the Year. Now, he won't be because he missed too much time with injury, but just the fact that Duke has a player like Maliq Brown, who is one of the best defenders in the country and won't get any of that recognition because he missed too much time with injury. So it's kind of crazy when you dive deep into the numbers and the roster and the stats and all that stuff about how many players are worthy of gathering postseason honors on this Blue Devil team.
Yeah, unbelievable stuff from Duke all season long. 19-1. They're the champions of the ACC. And of course, it happened on a night in which they knock off North Carolina. The Tar Heels had a little bit of life. They took as large of a 7-point lead in the second half, and Duke's able to overcome all of that and pick up a big-time victory. It was a who's who of players, former players, football legends in the building for North Carolina, and just what a sweet feeling it was for Duke to pick up this win. After the game was over, we've seen the Duke men's basketball staff release some behind-the-scenes locker room footage. That was just really fun to see those guys celebrate the accomplishments that they had, including head coach Jon Scheyer, including Jay Lucas, who played or coached his final game on staff and now has already been sending out love from Miami. He's going to have his press conference later today being introduced as a head coach. What did you like about some of those post-game celebrations, Kevin? Anything in particular?
You know, I thought it was pretty cool that Jon Scheyer told Jay Lucas before he went into the locker room that he was going in with him.
Yeah,
I think that kind of just shows that there's no bad blood, there's no animosity, that he's leaving for Miami and that he's leaving for Miami before the postseason. We detailed it last week. It's no fault on Lucas. It's no fault on Scheyer. It's no fault on Miami. It's no fault on Duke. All the fault falls on the ACC for how they structure, on the NCAA, excuse me, for how they structure their college basketball offseason. But yeah, I thought that was probably a really cool moment that Jay Lucas went in there, kind of his final game as a Duke Blue Devil, his parting gift, and he gets doused with the water as they celebrate in the locker room.
tremendous stuff there from Jay Lucas and Jon Scheyer. Duke on top of the ACC. Now they've got the ACC tournament coming up. Let's talk a little bit about that and so much more when we continue our conversation here with Kevin Connelly in just a moment. Okay, Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. It's so awesome to look at your brackets, to pick these big upsets. And with the FanDuel app, all of it is super easy and fast to do. You get paid instantly, no waiting around. So make sure that you visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. FanDuel is a proud sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network and here with us at Locked On Blue Devils. All right, last few moments of the show here today. Kevin Connelly is with me. We're talking Duke basketball. Now they've got the ACC tournament coming up. Duke will play at lunchtime on Thursday. They're going to take on the winner of the Virginia and Georgia Tech game. The Blue Devils would need to win 3 games there in Charlotte in the ACC tournament to be tournament champions. How you feeling going into this, Kevin? There's such an interesting discussion where some people are, always saying maybe it's better to lose the ACC tournament because it's back-to-back games and then trying to set yourself up for success in the postseason. I disagree with all of that. If you can win, go out there and win everything. And I hope that's what we see there from Duke this week.
Yeah, I understand the idea behind, a loss in the ACC tournament might not be the worst thing in the world because it recalibrates you and it refocuses you. And then you kind of get that monkey off your back heading into the NCAA tournament. I certainly get that. And we kind of saw that in 2015, right? When the last time Duke won a national championship and that team lost before winning the ACC tournament. I think they lost in the quarterfinals or the semifinals to Notre Dame. I think I have that right.
Yes.
But given how the ACC, and we talked about its struggles, I feel very confident with this team advancing, obviously, at least to the semifinals. I kind of foresee, if you're asking me for my predictions, I see a third matchup with North Carolina coming on that Friday night. Now, for North Carolina, it would be their third game in 3 days because they have to play in the second day of the ACC tournament as a number 5 seed. So they have to play Notre Dame or Pitt. Then if they win, they would play Wake Forest. So if you ask me for my predictions, I think they win against Notre Dame or Pitt. I think they advance to play Wake Forest. I think they beat Wake Forest. And then I think you get round 3 between Duke and North Carolina on Friday night in the ACC championship game. And then I do think Louisville or Clemson will come out of the bottom half of the bracket. I see those 2 teams meeting in the semifinals. So for what it's worth on my end, I do think the 4 best teams in the ACC are Duke, North Carolina, Louisville, and Clemson. I can see all 4 of those teams going to the semifinals. And then I'll give my ACC championship game. I'll take Duke against Louisville, and then I'll take Duke to defeat Louisville and win the ACC championship.
Yeah, I love it. In so many ways, it'd be nice to be able to see Clemson there and be able to get back at the Tigers for giving Duke their only ACC loss. Whatever happens, as long as Duke is ACC tournament champions, that's where I'm at. Duke is still trying to build this case for the number 1 overall seed. We'll see what the Auburn Tigers are able to do in the SEC tournament this week in Nashville. Auburn lost 2 games last week. But again, when you're just kind of comparing side-by-side resumes, given the strength of the SEC, Auburn's quad 1 games 4 times, 5 times, 6 times what Duke was able to do. Some crazy numbers out there that this year in the ACC, there was not one single ranked team versus ranked team matchup the entire year long. Did I read that right, Kevin?
I saw that stat as well. I didn't go back and fact check it myself, but
I believe it to be true.
It's incredible to me because obviously I think the one that everyone thought of was Duke against Clemson. But if you remember, Clemson, I think, had lost a game coming into that matchup. And now I'm looking at it right now. They were not ranked at the time. Duke was number 2 and Clemson was not ranked. So, that's inconceivable to me because when you look earlier in the season, back in December when Duke played Louisville, they weren't ranked either because they had lost a couple of games coming out of the battle for Atlantis. And then I think they had their ACC-SEC matchup that they lost. So they weren't ranked playing Duke either. So kind of crazy that it seems like that stat is true. There was not a ranked versus ranked matchup in the ACC this year. And now I know like the AP poll doesn't hold a lot of weight in the postseason because you're looking more of what your NCAA tournament seeding is or what your conference tournament seeding is. But we could theoretically have a couple of ranked matchups here in the ACC tournament between AP ranked teams.
Yeah, let's make it happen. Let's see what Duke's able to do. We'll see a little bit later today. The AP rankings come out for one final time before the tournament is seeded next Sunday. With Auburn losing 2 games last week, Duke winning the ACC, there's a world in which we could see a number 1 ranking for this Duke basketball team in the AP poll. It would be the first time ever under head coach Jon Scheyer that Duke is that number 1 recognition. And in some ways, I want to see that, Kevin. Jon Scheyer deserves this. What a job he's done as a head coach. And again, continuing to separate himself from coaches not only in the ACC, but all of college basketball, the success that they've had early in their first 3 years as a head coach. Tournament champions year 1, all the way to the Elite Eight last year, now a regular season championship within the ACC.
Yeah, JJ, I'll just say a couple things on that. We talked about the individual awards for Duke players for the ACC. We haven't really touched on Coach of the Year, and I think it's a fascinating matchup. I think you only have two real choices you could pick, and that's Jon Scheyer and Pat Kelsey. And now I'll be honest, I do not have a vote. If I did, I think I'd give it to Pat Kelsey, only because the expectation was Duke was going to be really good this year. And the expectation was Duke was going to be the number one team in the ACC and that they had national championship aspirations. If you look at what Pat Kelsey took over at Louisville for the past couple of years, and in his first year to have this team 25-6 and 18-2 in the conference, I don't think anyone in their wildest dreams thought Louisville was going to be this good in the top 15 team come the end of the regular season. So I know Jon Scheyer has done a great job with this Duke team to have them, which I think they will be number one in the AP poll in just a couple of minutes now when it gets released. But if I had a vote for the ACC Coach of the Year, I think I would give it to Pat Kelsey over Jon Scheyer. And then just to touch on your point about the NCAA tournament seeding, I do think it could be difficult for Duke to get the number one overall seed. I think they will 100% be a number one seed, but the number one overall seed, like you said, just because of the volume Auburn and some other SEC teams have in quad one games and in their metrics, and kind of that's an area where Duke is lacking. I don't know if Duke can get the number one overall seed unless they win the ACC tournament and do so in convincing fashion in their path, and Auburn gets tripped up again and does not win the SEC tournament. And then I think you're comparing resumes between a Duke and a Houston as to who is the number one overall seed. But I do think Duke will get beyond that one line on Selection Sunday. I just don't know if they will be the number one.
Yeah, and this isn't even mentioning the other SEC teams in discussion there with Alabama and Florida. St. John's has had one hell of a year with the championship of their own right there in the Big East. It's going to be interesting to see how Conference Championship Week plays out. Kevin, I know that you're going to have tons of Duke content up for people to read over at Ball Durham. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we got everything. We are wall-to-wall right now on top of this Duke basketball team, wrapping up our regular season coverage. But once the postseason rolls around, we even notch up the coverage over at Ball Durham. So we have tons of articles every single day. Come give us a read over at balldurham.com. Come follow us on social media at ball_Durham as we cover this Duke basketball postseason run together.
All right, Kevin, we'll see you again soon, okay?
Thanks, JJ.
All right, that's Kevin Connelly joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Once again, a major shout out to Kira Lawson and the Duke women's basketball team for winning the ACC tournament this past week in Greensville. First time in 12 years that Duke women's basketball was able to do that. The Duke Blue Devils, ACC champions in men's basketball, and now it's conference tournament week. We'll see how all of that plays out. Thank you so much for your support. As always, here with Locked On Blue Devils, please be sure to follow and subscribe to us for free wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Watch us each and every day on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel over there as well. That'll do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.